former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Middle East and ABC News national security and defense analyst. Mick, we learned just now that the U.S. is pausing military aid to Ukraine. How big a blow is that to their fight against Russia?
Juju, it's a big blow. I mean, not only the aid that was on the way and already been approved, but the potential that no aid will be coming in the future. Right now, Ukraine is already outnumbered vastly. So about 3-1 on troops, about 5-1 on artillery, and all the way up to 10-1 on tanks and armored personnel carrier.
Well, the real breaking news tonight is that Donald Trump has halted aid to Ukraine. While anonymous White House officials leaking this story to NBC News, The Washington Post, and other media outlets are calling it a pause, we've seen this word used before when they claim to have paused humanitarian aid meant for starving babies in Sudan. The food meant for children caught in a famine, that was paused. And that so-called pause cost lives, with children continuing to die from starvation. Before we dive into this groundbreaking shift, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss updates on the latest economic trends, global power shifts, and financial strategies. Now let's break down this. The reality is, it was never just a pause. This weekend, a USAID official was swiftly placed on administrative leave after a memo surfaced, revealing that despite a judge's order, the Trump administration has made zero effort to restore funding or restart the humanitarian aid process. That includes life-saving food and medicine for children and adults on the brink of death. So, when the Trump White House uses the term pause, Ukraine, the world, and all of us have every reason to believe that aid may never resume. According to the Washington Post, a White House source stated that the decision could be reversed if President Zelenskyy shows a good faith effort in peace talks. But that's precisely what Zelenskyy did in the Oval Office last Friday, where he faced a bad faith display. First from J.D. Vance and then from Donald Trump himself, who used the moment not for diplomacy, but for insults, something that seemed to thrill the very dictator Trump considers a comrade. Putin went through a lot with me, Trump declared, a phony witch hunt. They dragged Russia into it. Russia. He had to put up with that. It was all a scam. But the truth is, it wasn't a witch hunt. Yes, Vladimir Putin was accused of those things because he did them. And here's what Trump and Putin really went through together. Russia,
if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
And soon after Russia, Vladimir Putin did exactly that, releasing Hillary Clinton's emails. The Mueller investigation, which Trump dismisses as proving nothing, actually confirmed that Putin's government did everything in its power, including spreading disinformation online, to help Trump win the presidency. And they did it again in the last election. They will always work to elect the candidate who benefits Russia more than Ukraine. The title leader of the free world was first given to an American president during World War II, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. When Hitler invaded Poland in 1939, an eerie parallel to Putin's invasion of Ukraine, the United States military ranked 17th in the world. We weren't ready for war, but by the time America entered the conflict, Roosevelt had already begun building the strongest military force on Earth. His leadership won the war in both Europe and the Pacific. Even then, British Prime Minister Winston Churchill initially opposed Roosevelt's bold plan for a large-scale invasion across the English Channel to liberate France. During World War II, some of President Roosevelt's own generals, and even British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, initially opposed the plan for a massive Allied invasion to drive Nazi Germany out of France. Yet Roosevelt stood firm, ultimately securing Churchill's support at the last moment for what became the decisive military operation in Europe, D-Day. But Roosevelt was not just focused on winning battles, he was also laying the groundwork for lasting peace. While orchestrating the D-Day invasion and other key victories, he was also shaping what would later become the United Nations, an institution designed to prevent future global conflicts. Roosevelt did not live to see the UN's formal establishment in 1946, and the title leader of the free world did not become a defining role for American presidents until the Cold War. As the United States and the Soviet Union, led by a Russian dictator, became locked in a decades-long nuclear standoff, the free world was clearly defined, those nations that elected their leaders in open and fair elections. Meanwhile, authoritarian regimes like the Soviet Union and China, both former World War II allies, represented the opposition. Even after the Cold War cooled, those dividing lines remained. Now, for the first time in United States history, a sitting American president is changing sides mid-conflict. The last world leader to make such a dramatic shift was Adolf Hitler during World War II. After conquering Poland, France, and several other nations, Hitler abruptly turned on his ally, the Soviet Union, in an unpredictable and reckless maneuver. No other European nation has made such a reversal until now. After Donald Trump's chaotic and inflammatory performance in the Oval Office on Friday, European leaders rushed to support President Zelenskyy in London, reaffirming their commitment to Ukraine against an aggressive Russian dictator and war criminal. As Trump ranted in the Oval Office, Vladimir Putin spent the day launching missile and drone strikes across Ukraine. Ukraine, in contrast, did not fire a single shot across the Russian border. This stark contrast highlights a disturbing reality. The President of the United States is no longer leading the free world or even defending it. Instead, the free world has rallied behind a different leader, one who, despite facing a language barrier, tried to cut through Trump's distortions and misinformation in that same Oval Office meeting. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy may never be formally labeled leader of the free world, but there is no doubt that he is its bravest leader. Joining our discussion tonight is Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona, a member of both the Senate Armed Services Committee and the Senate Intelligence Committee. Senator, thank you for being here. Well, I met with President Zelenskyy before that meeting in private with no cameras in the room. What I saw in the Oval Office later felt orchestrated, like a setup. Trump and J.D. Vance seemed to think they were projecting strength, but what they actually showed was weakness, turning their backs on an ally at its most critical moment. This war has raged for 3 years, and while it does need to end, abandoning Ukraine and siding with its enemy is not the way to do it. That is a colossal mistake. I don't believe Trump even comprehends the full impact of what he just did. If this isn't corrected, it will haunt our country for decades. And now, with reports that the Trump White House is pausing all aid to Ukraine, what happens next? Senator Mark Kelly, what happens next is simple. More Ukrainians will die. That means more women, more children, more elderly citizens. Without our security assistance, Ukraine cannot fend off Russian attacks. I've been to Ukraine multiple times. J.D. Vance hasn't, Donald Trump hasn't. Many of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle have seen the reality on the ground. I've met the soldiers manning Patriot missile batteries, working tirelessly to shoot down Russian cruise missiles and ballistic rockets. If they don't get the support they need, those missiles won't be intercepted. And Putin is deliberately targeting schools and hospitals. This White House decision means more innocent civilians will lose their lives. Can Europe step up and replace American aid in Ukraine's defense? It's difficult to replace the United States. You mentioned how America has been the leader of the free world since Roosevelt. Frankly, even before that. The problem is Trump doesn't understand leadership. He doesn't understand Roosevelt. He doesn't understand Churchill. He doesn't understand history. Can the Europeans step up? They'll try. But without U.S. leadership, Ukraine's situation becomes significantly harder, and Russia's position becomes easier. This is exactly what the Kremlin wanted. In fact, today, Moscow openly stated that this outcome aligns with their vision. Putin now has Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and to some extent even Elon Musk on his side. One thing is clear. President Zelenskyy has never stopped expressing gratitude. How many times have we heard him say thank you to America? Senator Mark Kelly, countless times. When I met him on Friday, he said it repeatedly. Thank you to the American people. Thank you to Congress. Thank you to President Biden. I've never met a leader more appreciative of the support he receives. He understands exactly how much we've done for Ukraine, and he knows that without it, his country cannot survive. If we don't act now to restore that support, Russia will win. And if Russia wins, make no mistake, Putin won't stop with Ukraine. He will move to reclaim more territory and pursue his ultimate goal, restoring the Soviet Union. Is there any hope that Republican senators will take action to push back? Senator Mark Kelly, well, Senator Lisa Murkowski issued a strong statement condemning Trump's decision, so there is some hope. But unfortunately, since Trump's election, many of my Republican colleagues have simply fallen in line. They will echo whatever Trump says. If he reverses his stance tomorrow, they'll follow suit. If he switches sides in a war, they'll justify it. That's the dangerous reality we're dealing with. And here's the real consequence, Lawrence. As a country, we are now less safe. Every American is less safe. Their families are less safe. Our future is less secure. And that is a reality we will have to face if this continues. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think the U.S. should continue supporting Ukraine, Or do you agree with Trump's decision? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth discussions and updates on this important issue. Your voice matters.